Hello everybody, this is General Yanis, and today in Death Card Tactics, or Chaos Tactics, maybe I should start calling it, or General Yanis Tactics, I'm going to be looking a bit and discussing the Thousand Suns and how they have been affected by the 2022 changes in the game with the Dataslates, the Armour of Contempt, and now coming up Knights. So with no further ado, let's get started. So today, the 30th of April, another month going from this year. So as I said, looking at the overall impact of on the Thousand Suns from the various updates in the game in 2022, how do the overall changes impact Thousand Suns? The Armour of Contempt, of course, big news for all marine type armies. Looking at what this means for the Thousand Suns durability and the damage output. Also, we have gotten news about the Army of Renown, the Warpmeld Pact with a lot of Changors, a very big question mark of how good that could be. And then quickly just the body knights, bringing knights, and just summary and final thoughts. Before I start, as always, very big thanks for your support and your good comments on the YouTube channel, on the Facebook forums, and a very special thanks, as always, to my patrons making this. Your support makes it more possible for me to do more videos. So let's get started. So the 2022 data slates and the Thousand Suns, basically the Thousand Suns were not mentioned in any specific changes to the in the data slates. They were no part of the point correction. The only thing that really affected was the universal increase of the Volkites for the Contemptors, but nothing. So that's quite good compared, for example, to Death Guard, which got hit by the point corrections, but then got a little bit some bones thrown with the data slates. But Thousand Suns unaffected from most rules, and now in the latest. With the latest data slate, the whole army, apart from Django's occultists, because we have the heretic Astartes, the heretic Astartes keyword on Thousand Suns, they gain the Armour of Contempt, and this gives a very nice buff in durability, especially for damage 1 weapons and the Rubrics and the Scarab Occult Terminators, which are basically the two, let's say, the backbone of the Thousand Suns armies, and very strong. I mean, this is how you basically can build a list. If you add Rubrics and Scarab Occult Terminators, some HQ, you have the base for a good Thousand Suns list. It's difficult to make a bad Thousand Suns list if you take Scarab Occults and then Rubrics as your backbone. The Armour of Contempt also makes the mortal wounds that the Thousand Suns can do relatively stronger facing other opponents that have now Armour of Contempt. The Armour of Contempt bypassing AP is not working, of course, versus mortal wounds. So relatively speaking, the Thousand Suns have a very high mortal wound count, and this is comparatively stronger now, where shooting and melee damage is a bit reduced if you're fighting an Armour of Contempt opponent. The indirect fire nerf didn't really impact Thousand Suns, as we didn't the Thousand Suns didn't have a, let's say, indirect fire. The bodyguards nerf can impact a little bit the Thousand Suns. The Guardians stratagem, where you could protect a character even if he was in front and couldn't be targeted, and so on. This is, of course, now reduced. Now it gets a lookout, sir. But so this, of course, is a bit of an impact for the Thousand Suns. And in general, the Nachmund mission pack, focusing more on actions and maybe board presence, etc. I think in general, Thousand Suns are quite mobile. They have a lot of tricks to forward deploy, to redeploy, to double move, to teleport, to psychic teleporting, etc. So I think that's a good match overall for the Thousand Sun as the game is going. If we look at the Armour of Contempt, how much better does, for example, Rubric Marines get? Here we see a variety of weapons from, let's say, weaker anti-infantry weapon to the tough weapons like meltas and such. So here we see how many shots does it take to kill a Rubric Marine. This is before Armour of Contempt, and now we see with the Armour of Contempt, and we see the improvement in the number of shots it takes to let's say, to how many more shots a Rubric can take before being killed. And AP1 weapons, of course, this is they can take double the amount of shots, and for AP3 they can take considerably many more shots here for the 30-50%, even double up the number of shots versus the lighter anti-infantry fire. For the heavy fire, there is no big improvement for the rubrics because they will probably already be saving on their 5+ invul. And here in this table, I just made how the rubrics they save, and especially versus damage 1 weapons with all this dust, giving them +1 to their save. This is really strong, and it let's say stacks with the effect stacks with the Armour of Contempt. So with a damage 1 weapon, they will be saving on a 2+ from AP0 to AP1, and it would take AP4 to force them to go to their invul save. So very good saves here for the rubric. If they are also on top of that in cover, they get 1 more plus to their save. So then they can basically save up to AP2 with a 2+ save. So they're really strong. If you keep them in cover, this is it's very difficult to kill them with light fire, and you would need AP5 to force them to go for their invul. If you have higher than damage 1 other damage type weapon, then you get this save profile, not bad, but of course damage 1 they really excel at surviving AP1. And all in all, based on this damage 1 fire, they are better than the Death Guard Plague Marines. They can survive more shots. They are more durable, and the rubric's durability. If you're being shot by damage 2 weapon, you can also use the Phalanx stratagem. When it's needed, then you reduce the incoming damage by 1, and then it becomes a damage 1 weapon. So then you can have very good saves for something like a supercharged plasma or something with a damage 2 or blight launchers or something like that. You can also give them Glamour of Change. You can give them 4+ invul saves, but again, it requires quite a high AP to force them to go to their 5+ invul save, where the 4+ invul save could help them. The Scarab Occult Terminators, similar analysis here. The Scarab Occult Terminators, they have a 2+ base save with all its dust against damage 1 weapons. They have a basically 1+ save. If they are in cover, they have basically a 0+ save, and then they can basically take AP3 shots and still save on a 2+ if it's a damage 1 weapon. So it takes really a lot. If they are in cover and you are firing at them with damage 1, you can't. It's not very easy to force them to take their invul 5+ invul save. So all in all, you see here a very good increase versus especially damage 1 weapon, AP1 weapons. They can really ignore a lot of the AP shots at them, and again, for some of the heavy weapons with very high AP4, there is no improvement because they are saving on their 5+ invul. They are not as durable as the comparison with the Blight Lords and the Death Shroud, especially versus heavier weapons, where the Death Guard cousins they have a 4+ invul, but still very good overall, and they can be resurrected and healed. They can be healed quite easily with upgrades and psychic powers, but they can also be resurrected, and this is something the Blight Lords and Death Shroud would be. We would like to have that in Death Guard as well, to be able to resurrect some of these scary Terminators. But all in all, also very durable and can ignore some high AP if you have them in cover. Looking at the damage output now of Thousand Suns for some of these infantry weapons for the rubrics and the Scarab Terminators. Of course, if you are firing now against enemies with Armour of Contempt, the typical Inferno bolt gun or warp flame profile has an AP -2. This becomes AP -1 versus Armour of Contempt. So of course the damage output becomes less for these, for example, Space Marine type enemies here, or Death Guard or Thousand Suns mirror match. But for, of course, the targets with no Armour of Contempt are not affected. Here is the old damage output before Armour of Contempt, and the blue is the damage output for with the Armour of Contempt targets here. But so all in all, some degradation versus Marine armies, but again, starting from a quite nice AP -2. If they had let's say if the profile was AP -1 to begin with, then it would have been a severe damage reduction. And here is just a table taking the average versus all the General Yanis targets in the previous page, not point corrected. So we see, for example, the Inferno bolt gun, assuming double fire here for the rubrics, old rules, 0.3 damage, 0.34 damage, with the new rules, 0.3 on average across all the targets. Some of them had AoC and some didn't. So basically an 11% degradation of the damage output. Warp Flamer and Combi Bolter, basically the same. They have the same strength profile. We see the Soul Reaper and the Kopesh for the Scarab Occult Terminators less affected because they are starting from a high AP -3. The Force Stave for the leaders, AP -1, suffers more, 18% across all the targets and more versus the Armour of Contempt targets. But very importantly also that the Doom Bolt, Psychic Powers, Mortal Wound output isn't affected at all by the AoC, and relatively speaking, it becomes, let's say, it's easier to do the damage. Relatively speaking, the psychic damage output, mortal wounds, becomes more important than shooting and melee. So, for example, a Doom Bolt, 2.5 mortal wounds, regardless, basically of the any target. This is taking account that you can't always cast it. Here I'm assuming the opponent cannot deny you're casting with +1, but if you use Cabal Rituals, you can pretty consistently get the Doom Bolt out, you can get Smites out, you can add, yeah, it's easy to make 13, 15, I don't know, many mortal wounds with Thousand Suns, so the opponent's AoC units can be destroyed and you don't care about their AP reduction. The other news, as I said, there was news about Army of Renown, the Warpmeld Pact, and basically it allows you to take many Changors. You don't need the Dust Boys to, let's say, the normal Rubrics and Scarab Occult Terminators. The Spawn and the Changors in this army get beefed up. They have the 5+ invul save, which the Changors were getting anyway. They get a 5+ protection from mortal wounds. The leaders, like the Psychic HQ, as I read it, would also get some of this benefit, but they already have a 4+ invul, most of them, and okay, they can get a 5+ protection from mortal wounds. It allows them to make a pre-move, normal move of up to 6 inches, and you can teleport them and do some things. But there are so many limitations to this army. You can't take vehicles, monsters, or cultists. You lose the Brotherhood of Sorcerers, which is basically why you would like, I assume, to play Thousand Suns, where you get +1 to cast. All your Arcana starters get 5+ invul saves. You're only limited to half of the spells, only the Discipline of Change. So it's basically with these limitations here, I think it's hard to know. Thanks, but no thanks, Games Workshop. I don't know if it would. Maybe if you want to have a fun game with your Changors, but again, they are still Changors, even if they get a 5+ mortal wound. You can flood the board more easily with Changors, but then I don't know how much fun you can have with that, because I think you can still flood the board with Rubrics and Scarab Terminators, and they are not easy to be pushed away. So thanks, but no thanks. To field all the Changors we have in our closets at home. So summary and final thoughts. Thousand Suns have importantly not received any nerf with the changes and point corrections in 2022. They were not mentioned or changed in any major way. Of course, getting the army-wide buff now from Armour of Contempt. So army-wide, the durability increases, except the Changors and the cultists. The Rubrics and the Scarab Occult Terminators, which are basically the main units to build any kind of Thousand Suns list, were already very durable versus damage 1 weapons. Now they become increasingly durable, and they can also easily handle damage 2 if you use the stratagem to reduce damage cleverly. Of course, shooting the weapons of the Thousand Suns versus Armour of Contempt targets, there is a damage reduction. but it's a bit modest because already starting from an AP2 helps to get through the damage. And more importantly, mortal wounds as a whole for the game will be stronger now with AoC being a factor, and this is already 1,000 Suns strong point, and also defense versus psychic mortal wounds. At least the 1,000 Suns, they have so many psychers, there are so many denies, and also some shenanigans to deny, so they are better protected than many other armies. Maybe Grey Knights are probably the best protected to deny powers, but still 1,000 Suns is very good at denying as well. And all in all, some very good things, and the upcoming possibility to add knights to the mix to spice things up and make some more fun lists. It's like, okay, you get some rubrics, you get some Terminators, you get your HQ, you get your Exalted Sorcerer, your Ahriman, and Exalt the Infernal Master, and then you add a knight with melee or something like that. You have a strong list. So all in all, I think this points to I expect an ascendancy of the Dusty Boys in the meta. What do you guys think? So this concludes the video. Let me know your comments, your thoughts for the 1,000 Suns. If you want, please press like and subscribe to my channel, helping the channel grow. If you want to further support my efforts or have some, you can visit my Patreon page. If you have some wishes for videos, please leave in the comments or in the Patreon page. And with these words, General Yanis is signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye-bye.